Hello again. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another live stream with me, Lara Ryan from Complete Test Success. So today we are looking at IELTS Speaking, and specifically we're working on IELTS Speaking Part 3 today. So what we do in these live streams, basically, I'll share a link with you. You can come and join me here live. I'll ask you a few questions, and I'll give you some feedback on your main issues. When I'm supporting students, when I'm helping students improve their scores, the best information I can give them after I've, taught you what to do, the best information I can give you is what mistakes you're making, what weaknesses you have. Because if you know what they are, then you can start fixing them. But the problem a lot of students have is, like, let's say, for example, you need a band 7. You do the test and you get a band 6.5. It was like, what exactly are you supposed to do to improve? And a lot of students, they don't have that information. So that's basically what we're doing here today. And then any of you who don't join me live, you're free to ask any questions you have about IELTS speaking as well. Okay, so if you look in the comments, I'm just after sharing that link with you there, either on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you are. So link to join me live, click on that. You'll be able to join me here on the platform. I'll ask you some part 3, some IELTS Speaking part 3 questions, and then I'll be able to give you some feedback on your answers. Hi, Abdul. Good to see you here. Welcome to the lesson. So while we're waiting for people to join, either go ahead and click the link, or if you have any questions, like I said, just type them into the comments there and I'll be able to answer them for you. In general, what I would say is if you're trying to improve your IELTS speaking scores, try to keep things as simple as possible when you're in the test. If you try to speak faster than you would normally speak, you're making it more difficult. If you're trying to talk about topics that you wouldn't normally talk about, you're making it more difficult on yourself. If you're trying to use vocab or grammar that you wouldn't normally use, again, you're making it more difficult for yourself. If you need to improve some aspect of your speaking, you need to do that before you go to the IELTS test. So, if your vocab isn't good enough, you need to study vocab before your IELTS test. You can't just wait until the day of the test and then just start using words you wouldn't normally use. You need to improve your vocab before the test if you have a vocab problem. In the same way, if you make particular grammar mistakes or particular pronunciation mistakes, again, you need to fix that before the test. So in general, try to keep it as simple as possible. When you're in the test, just make sure you understand the question, think about what you want to say, and then answer the question as clearly as you can. Develop your answer as much as you can. Abdul, sir, I always use fillers. Can you please let me know how I can avoid them? It's normal. It's normal to use fillers. In the IELTS speaking test, part of your fluency and coherence score is your use of discourse markers. And a discourse marker, like, that's a discourse marker. Like that noise that shows you're thinking about what you want to say. So those aren't necessarily a bad thing. That's different to pauses and hesitations, though. Like if you're pausing and hesitating a lot, that's bad for your fluency score. But if you're using fillers, saying like, saying saying well, that type of thing, that's normal. Hi, Mayank. Good to see you here. Just one thing is, if you're joining me live, you will need to turn your camera on. Mohammed, I see you've joined me here. You'll need your camera on if you're going to participate. How to improve my grammar. So Mayank, if you're looking to improve your grammar, the first thing you need to identify is, what are you doing wrong? What mistake are you making most often? And this is what I was just talking about, where, the best thing I can do once you've learned how to behave and the structure of the speaking test, the best thing I can do is tell you what your mistakes are. So if you don't know what grammar mistake you make most often, You could guess, you mightn't be right. But having a teacher to tell you what your mistakes are is, you know that it's going to be more effective because you know that it's the right thing. So let's say, for example, your most common mistake is with tenses, that you make tense mistakes quite a bit. If you make a lot of tense mistakes, well, what you need to do is work on that. So focus on tenses and nothing else. You might need to study the grammar for a while, like study the grammar rules. Once you've done that and you're kind of comfortable with what the rules are, I would recommend doing a lot of reading and looking at the way tenses are used in, books, newspapers, magazines, websites. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're reading. But just looking at the way tenses are used and trying to explain to yourself, why is this tense used in this situation? Why is this tense being used in this situation? Referring back to the rules that you studied earlier and trying to get a deeper understanding of those rules by looking at them being used. By reading for a while, you'll kind of get more comfortable with, the various tenses and how they're used and when they're used. So once you've been reading with a focus on tenses for a while, you'll notice that you're able to recognize why it's being used and why it's the correct tense much more quickly. When you get to that stage, that might take a week or two, but once you get to that stage, then you start practicing with writing. My own opinion is that if you're not able to do it in writing, when you're able to take your time and think about it, think about the rules and go back and correct mistakes, if you can't do it in writing, it's unlikely that you'll be able to do it in speaking. So I would say get it right with writing first. Improve the quality of your writing first. And then once you know you can do it in writing, you're going, okay, I have the knowledge, I have the ability. Now I need to implement it, introduce it to my speaking. When speaking, you're going to have to slow down a lot. So don't worry about your fluency. Don't worry about going quickly. Don't worry, the fact that you might feel like you're going slower than you want to. That's what you need to do. Slow way down and just make sure you're getting those tenses correct over and over again, stopping and thinking and going back and correcting yourself. Obviously, you'll need to practice alone. You can't talk to somebody when you're speaking in that way. But practicing alone, practicing really slowly with a focus on tenses, make sure you're getting it right, and slowly but surely, just by spending enough time doing it, by doing it slowly, you eventually get to the stage where you start doing it correctly without much of an effort. Once you get to that stage, once you're starting to do it correctly without effort, that you're kind of finished with that, and then you would move on to the next grammar mistake and do the same. So we're talking about, easily 2 or 3 weeks to fix each one, and you would only focus on that and nothing else. So it takes time, it takes effort, but it can be done. And I've seen and helped a lot of students do it in the way I've described. Mohammed, sir, can you teach some techniques to talk for at least 2 minutes in part 2? In part 2, it depends on your level, to be honest. It depends on your level. If you're a higher level student, I think just telling a story about the topic is good. If you're a lower level student, having some kind of a structure where you're going to follow the prompts and maybe creating new prompts that you can follow. So when you have 1 minute to make notes, you have 4 prompts already on the cue card. So then you're going like, okay, once I finish discussing those 4 prompts, I'll start talking about, this, and you make notes about the general topics you'll discuss rather than writing down vocab or grammar. Hi, Ariel, I see you've joined me there. If you want to turn on your camera, we can jump in. You good?
Hey.
Hey, Ariel. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Where are you from, Ariel?
I'm from China.
Very good. And can you tell me what score do you need in the IELTS speaking test?
I need a 7.5 overall. Maybe I need a 7 in speaking.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a few part 3 questions, and then I'll have feedback for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, so these questions are about cities. What is the main advantage of living in a city?
I think the main advantage is that people can go shopping and go to the hospital or school convenience, and they can take the subway or train in the city, and they can. Okay.
And what is the main disadvantage of living in a city?
I think that the air pollution is serious in the city. People would tend to go to work or go for a trip by car or by train, and then there will be many factories in the city. Yeah, they will have some water pollution also.
And what types of people don't enjoy living in a city?
I think the older generation prefer to live in the village, not the city, because they don't know how to use the smartphones to order some fast food or take the taxi, so they cannot use those advanced technology.
Thank you. So you're talking about the old generation. Actually, first of all, do you speak in English much? Like, how often would you speak in English?
Every day, I'm studying pronunciation and intonation, and this is the first time I'm here, so I'm a little bit nervous.
Yeah, that's normal. That's normal. You're not alone. But what I wanted to talk about was, like, when you said the older generation, is that a phrase that you would use often? Like, is that something that you would use naturally, or are you trying to use, higher or more advanced language because it's the IELTS test?
I think I usually I will use this, but
That's fine. That's perfect. You see, what I was worried about, and a lot of students do this, is because it's the IELTS test, they try using vocab they wouldn't normally use. That's not good for your score. That's going to make things more difficult. So that's fine. You're communicating clearly. Your answers are too short, though, and you're pausing too often. So fluency is definitely something that you want to work on. You can make your life a lot easier, though, by just choosing one thing to discuss. I said to you, what is the main advantage of living in a city? So then you gave me one thing, and then you're trying to think of another thing. And then after that, you're like, oh, what am I going to say now? And then you give me another thing. So you're constantly trying to find new things to talk about. Whereas if you just choose one thing and then just talk about that and describe the situation, where you live, the environment where you live, if you're talking about transportation, just talk about how it's better there compared to where it is in the countryside. So if you focus on just one thing, it's going to be easier to develop that. Whereas if you turn your answer into a list of things, it becomes very difficult to continue speaking. And also the answer becomes less coherent because it's more like, a list of different things. So I think you can make your life easier by focusing on one topic, trying to develop that more. Do you have any questions about that?
No, thank you very much.
You're okay.
How do you feel about my intonation? How can I improve that?
Your intonation is fine. Your sentence stress isn't quite accurate. So you tend to stress every third or fourth word. So you tend to talk in shorter chunks where you're stressing too many words in each sentence. Your intonation is good. So I don't see any issues with your intonation. And when it comes to grammar, the grammar mistake you make most often is with articles. So when it comes to working on grammar, I'd recommend that you make that the priority.
Okay, thank you very much for your suggestions.
You're very welcome. My pleasure. Nice to meet you. Bye. Okay. So let's go back, see what comments we have here. I cannot wait to learn from participants and your feedback. Thanks, XAX. Good to see you here. Mayank, you're very welcome. No problem. Roman, I'm struggling with extending the sentences while writing and facing problem to make an idea on topics. Would you please help me in how to improve this area? So we're focusing on speaking today. I have made lessons. If you look at the videos in my Facebook page, you will see lessons where I talk about this, and also, I will have live streams on writing as well. So we will be working on that another day, but we're just going to focus on speaking today. Hi, Garung. Good to see you here. Ali Lur, sir, how can I overcome my repetition in speaking? So are you repeating the same words or repeating the same information? What exactly is the problem? Yeah, Mohammed, absolutely. Just join. Oh, you're here already. Yeah, you'll have to turn on your camera to participate. But yeah, definitely. Okay, Abdul, are you ready?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hi, Abdul. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. Yeah, very clear. Where are you from, Abdul?
I'm from Pakistan, and I'm just currently preparing for the IELTS while you're
Good man.
watching your videos.
Good. What score do you need for speaking?
7, actually.
Okay. All right. So just like we had with Ariel, I'll ask you a few questions and then I'll have some feedback for you. Okay. Traffic congestion is a common problem in cities around the world. Do you think this situation will continue in the future?
It would depends. If we go for the local transport more, and if people prefer the local transport more, then eventually the traffic congestion will be reduced over the time. So it totally depends on how technology and how people basically reacting on the situation, and how they are taking the solution regarding the problem.
And do you think governments should be allowed to displace people from their homes to improve the transportation infrastructure?
Could you please elaborate more about the question, as I haven't get?
So sometimes when the government wants to build a new road, they will remove the people who live in houses where they want to put the road. Do you think it's okay for the government to do this?
I believe this is not okay, because people saved lots of money to build their houses. So it's not fine with them. They have struggled to develop their houses, and even they managed to develop their own houses. So they shouldn't, government shouldn't do at all. uh, Even by after doing, if they still have no choice to do it, so in order to build the house, they can displace the people by giving them some funds and enough money. They can shift it to somewhere else, and by using that money and build new houses.
And with the increasing popularity of working from home, do you think more people will choose to live in the countryside?
Yeah, it would depends. As the population is increasing in the city side, eventually it leading to the pollution, air pollution, and because of the pollution, people are tend to more sick in the city side. So if people are allowed to do work at their home and remote jobs, as we see, many people are going for the remote jobs nowadays. So they usually prefer to live countrysides, because of the benefits of the they have can have the fresh air there, and fresh fruits, fresh vegetables that are readily available there, because of the agriculture environment.
Thank you. Okay, so I think at the moment you're making things too difficult for yourself. Your answers are quite complicated and your vocab is a little bit unclear. So just one thing that you said people struggle to develop their houses. Can you tell me what you mean using more simple vocab. So can you use easier vocab to explain that to me? People struggle to develop their houses.
Actually, has people have struggled to develop their houses because of they have saved lots of money.
So what do you mean by develop then?
Construct their houses,
Okay.
save the money. They
So people struggle to make money to build their
yeah,
houses.
yeah.
Okay. So there's just a few bits missing there. I think take smaller steps and try to use easier vocabulary. It'll be clearer. And in another area you need to work on is sentence structures. So you tend to make quite a few mistakes with basic sentence structures, where the basic, like, subject plus verb plus object tends not to be right. So basic sentence structures is something that you need to work on. I would say just try to keep it simple with your vocab. Have you booked your test yet?
No, I haven't booked yet. However, I am still working on speaking.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. If you have time to study vocab, do study vocab, but make sure that you're learning in longer chunks of language. So we do use the word a development to refer to like what a construction company would do. So there is a way that they use development to refer to like when the construction company is in the middle of building something. But we wouldn't use the word develop to mean build. So it seems like you're seeing words, you see how they're used in context, but you're not really learning what they mean on a deeper level. And the problem then is when you go to use them, you end up using them inaccurately. So I think studying vocab, but try to learn full phrases, like maybe like something like to invest in a development, or, the construction had to halt the development, or, try to learn a full phrase. You're more likely to use it correctly, because if you just learn the word development, you're not going to use it. It's less likely you will be able to use it correctly. So try to learn groups of words rather than individual words. For your first two answers, I felt like you weren't really sure what you wanted to say. It felt like you were just kind of making it up as you went along. Your third answer was clear. You had a direct answer. You answered the question and you explained your answer. It was much stronger. But for the first two, I just felt that you probably needed a little bit more time to think about what you wanted to say and decide what you want to say before you start speaking. So I think giving yourself more time to think, if you have time to study vocab, and working on sentence structures, those would be the main areas for you to work on. All right.
Sir, one thing, how can I work on the idea generation? Because at this moment you are asking multiple questions, and I just lack of the ideas I answered.
Did you understand the questions?
Yeah, I understand the questions.
Well, there's no correct or incorrect answer. It's basically, I just want to know what you think. So, maybe you give me an answer and it's wrong, but that doesn't affect your score. I'm just checking your fluency, vocab, grammar, pronunciation. So maybe like it's factually incorrect. That won't affect your score. So it's just whatever you think. You just need to guess. And, we don't need to agree with one another. Like I might give a different answer to you. Again, that doesn't matter. So it's not about having the same opinion or having the correct answer. You're just talking. The purpose of the questions is just you have to talk about something. So I'm giving you questions so that I can get you to talk. So don't worry about maybe the quality of the answers themselves, and just say what you really think. If you were sitting down talking to a friend and they asked you, like, how often would you talk to your friend? And your friend asks you a question, just go like, I don't know. Like that never happens in the real world, because you understand the dynamic is you're asking me what I think. You're not expecting me to be an expert. So it's the same thing in the IELTS test. Don't put yourself under pressure to perform at a very high standard or to be very knowledgeable. You're just talking. You're just having a chat. All right.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Abdul.
you so much, sir.
Nice to meet you. Take care of yourself. Bye. Okay, Mohammed, I see you have your camera on. Just give me 1 minute. I'll take a look at the other comments here. Same words. So this question, how can I overcome my repetition in speaking? So repetition of same words. It's probably your vocab level, or it could be your fluency. It depends. Like if you don't know the words, so you don't know them, and therefore you have to use the same words. You don't know any synonyms. You're unable to paraphrase because your vocab knowledge. If that's the problem, you need to improve your vocab. It could be that you know the words, but you can't think of them fast enough. That's a fluency problem. So it depends. If you think it's a fluency problem, you need to improve fluency. If you think it's a vocab problem, you need to improve vocab. But then the other thing is, are you putting yourself under too much pressure to not use the same words? This is what a lot of people do is, they think, oh, I've used the same word 2 times. I should never use that word again. It's like, well, that's not how speaking works. Like, while I'm answering your question, how many times have I said the word word? Probably about 15, 20 times in this one short answer. If you're talking about words, you've got to use the word. You've got to use the word. So the thing is, don't make it overly complicated. If you need to improve your vocab, do that. If you need to improve your fluency, do that. But don't force yourself to avoid using words. If you need to use the word, just use it. The main goal, especially when you're in the IELTS test, the main goal is clear communication. So don't make it more complicated. Kalilur, I follow your writing structure. If I write your essay by copying, how will I get a score? The IELTS exam. So you wouldn't want to copy any of the essays I've written, but you can copy the structure. So the structure is just, what to put in the introduction, how many paragraphs to have, what information to put in each paragraph. So it's just an organization. The structures are just how to organize your answer. But what information you put and what language you include in those places, that has to be, that has to come from you. You have to see the question and then decide on what you want to say after that. Hi, Karamboy. Okay, Mohammed, let's get you in here. Hi, Mohammed. How are you?
Hi, sir.
Nice to meet you. Where are you from, Mohammed?
From Uzbekistan.
Uzbekistan, very good. And what score do you need in the speaking test?
Well, I have already taken my IELTS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So speaking was 6.5.
Mm-hmm.
It was unexpected. So I want to take it again, and I want to get, at least 7, or if it would be great if I get 8.
So at the moment, let's say you're aiming for a 7.
Yeah.
Yep.
7 plus.
Okay, good. All right. So here I'm going to ask you some questions about choosing jobs. What kinds of jobs do young people in your country not want to do?
I'd say physical jobs. Our generation is quite lazy, I guess, because no one doesn't wants to do labor work. In my country, for example, everyone is learning IT. Jobs they can do with computer or online.
And who is best at advising young people about what career they should choose?
It would depend, but I think it would be a parent, because parent is the only person who spends most of the time with their children. So they would know what is best for their children, the strengths of their children. So they would advise, the best career path for them.
Is money always the most important thing when choosing a job?
No, obviously it's not. Yes, money is important, but not as important as job satisfaction, happiness. There are things that means more than some things. For example, for me, I would never take a job, you know, where pay would be great, but I wouldn't like the job. For I like teaching, so I'd like to be a teacher in the future, even though I wouldn't make a lot of money. As long as the profit I am making is enough for my survival, I'd love to do the job. I'd love to teach.
Okay, thank you, Mohammed. Mohammed, did you get a breakdown? Did you get a breakdown of your IELTS speaking scores?
Yes.
Which scores did you
Discussing
get band 7?
what?
For which scores did you get band 7?
No,
So
I
you
couldn't
know,
understand.
in Uzbekistan, you can apply for a breakdown, so you can find out what score you got for fluency, vocab, grammar, and pronunciation. Which ones did you get band 7?
I got I got 7 for lexical resource and pronunciation.
Okay. So in your grammar, your main mistake is subject-verb agreement. So that's like when you're using present simple, it's he goes with an S, that type of thing, where you have to put the S onto the verb. So that mistake you make, and you use the modal verb would in places where you shouldn't use it. So in terms of improving your grammar, those are the two things I'd like you to focus on. For fluency, you have a tendency to speak in short chunks. So when you're speaking, you say a few words, and then there's a pause, and then you continue. That's going to keep you down as well. That's going to keep you down as well. So for fluency, that's going to be the main thing. I feel with fluency, it's more like a style thing, or maybe a habit, rather than an inability to continue speaking. So you just need to practice speaking in English more often. Like I said to the other students, you can practice by yourself. Nobody needs to listen to you, but get out of that habit of that, 3 or 4 words, and then another 3 or 4 words. That style of just smaller chunks of words, and then you stop. So those would definitely be the 3 things. If your lower scores were fluency and grammar, those are the 2 things that I would recommend that you focus on to get your score up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I got it.
Any questions for me there before you go?
No, just thank
Okay.
you.
You're more than welcome, and nice talking to you. Take care of yourself. Bye. Okay. So look what comments we have here. Mandeep, good evening, sir. Hi, Mandeep. I have a question. Is it important to take pauses while speaking because intonation is most important to get higher bands in speaking? Sir, I got twice 8 bands, but not perfect 9. Pauses are important. You need to pause. I find it quite difficult to follow people who don't pause at the appropriate place. So, when you're speaking, you need to pause before you continue. It generally breaks up the clause or breaks up the piece of information. But if somebody speaks without any pauses and they continue on to the next sentence before they finish the last one and there's no pause between them and it's very difficult to keep on top of what they said, it makes it sound like they're speaking so much faster. And your brain is just, I like to describe it as, if I open up too many programs on my computer and my computer just starts going slowly, to me, that's kind of what it feels like. When I listen to somebody speaking like that, I'm like trying to keep up. My brain is trying to stay on top of it, but I just find it challenging. So yes, pauses are very, very important. Pauses are very important, but you need to pause in the correct places. There's also pauses and hesitation, which is part of your fluency and coherence score. So if you're pausing in the wrong places, if you're pausing too often, and if you're pausing for too long, that's a fluency problem. But if you never ever pause, that's a pronunciation problem. And dear sir, as you've mentioned while speaking, it's super important to choose the correct vocab. No, I didn't say that. I didn't say it's super important to choose the correct vocab. What I said is it's important to just try and use the vocab you would normally use. So there's no correct vocab. Of course, there's inaccurate vocab, but I mean, it's not that you're expected to use specific words in the IELTS test. I had a practice speaking test with a student earlier today. His English is very good, but he was trying to speak in a kind of academic style, like he was giving a presentation, or maybe like if you're in a job interview where you're trying to be very formal and kind of appear very serious. So all of the good kind of slang, he was a younger guy, all of the good slang and informal phrases that he would normally use, he's not using them because he's trying to use IELTS vocab, because a lot of people think that's necessary. So there is no correct vocab in terms of the words you should use. Of course, you can use a word incorrectly. So you can use words incorrectly, but it's not that there's correct words or special words you need to use. You must use words accurately, of course. If you're using the words incorrectly, it's unclear, or the collocations are wrong, inaccurate collocations, that's going to bring down your score. But it's not important to choose the correct vocab in the way you said it. And Kit, if you look earlier at the start, so if you look there at the first 1 or 2 comments in the chat, you'll see a link and you can join me there. Ray, hi teacher. Hi Ray. Could you tell me, is listening a lot can help to improve speaking? Suppose you get more familiar with like intonation, sentence stress patterns. You might, start to recognize how words are pronounced more than if you were just reading all the time. Listening is good, but the thing is, what are you trying to improve? Okay, so if you're trying to improve your grammar, are you listening for a specific grammar structure? Like I was talking to my Yank earlier on about, you need to focus on a very specific grammar area. If you're trying to improve grammar, focus 100% on that and nothing else. And if you're listening, are you listening for an ear for grammar? So are you trying to improve grammar? Is that why you're listening? Are you trying to improve pronunciation? Are you trying to shadow to improve your sentence stress? Are you trying to improve vocab? So you're listening to whatever, listening to something to try and consolidate the vocab that you're learning. So I mean, for fluency, it's going to help with fluency as well, because the more you engage in English, the more your brain starts like operating in English. Inevitably, if you're going to get a high fluency score, it's going to be because you're capable of thinking in English. So if you're listening to a lot of English, that will pull you closer to that as well. So there are certainly advantages to listening, but I wouldn't say it's the most efficient way of improving your speaking. I would say there are definitely positive, outcomes of listening, positive outcomes on your speaking, but I don't think it's necessarily the best way to improve your fluency, vocab, grammar, or pronunciation. I think being more active in those areas you're trying to improve is more effective. Okay, so I have 2 students with me here at the moment. If you guys want to turn on your cameras, I'll get you in here. And if not, we might just finish up a little bit early today. So we'll just wait another, let's say 30 seconds or so. If we have someone else coming on, if someone wants to click on the link to join me, come in with your camera on. And if anyone has questions, feel free to comment. Mandeep, dear sir, Examiners give bands according to marking criteria. So we need to prepare ourselves like this. I don't fully understand that question, Mandeep. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean? When you say prepare ourselves like this, I don't know what the word this is referring to. So can you tell me more about that? So accurate. While I was preparing IELTS, I dreamed in English. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I was in the national language in my country is Irish. Nobody speaks it anymore. We all speak English now, but we have to learn it at school. And I went to an Irish college, so it's like a summer camp where you go and you stay for a few weeks and you speak in Irish. And I remember I was there for, it wasn't that long, about 5 or 6 days, and we're all speaking, you know, like playing sport and speaking in Irish. We're sleeping there. We had like Cayley dances at nighttime and playing sports and Irish lessons, and we're all talking together in Irish. It was only about 4 or 5 days I start thinking in English or start thinking in Irish as well. It happens. It happens surprisingly fast. Office work. If not listening, then what is the best way to improve speaking? Well, it depends. Are you trying to improve your fluency? Practice more. Vocab, study vocab. Grammar, we already talked about. And pronunciation would be similar to grammar, where you focus on one area, make sure you can do it right, go really slowly, and practice getting it right over and over and over again, so that it becomes just muscle memory and you're doing it automatically. Up to go. Hi, Lar. Do we have to use more formal language as the speaking test goes along? No. I mean, do I have to use progressively more academic and formal language in later parts of the speaking test? No, not at all. Like if you naturally speak in a formal way, that's what you should do in the test. If you naturally speak in an informal way, that's what you should do in the test. So don't try to adapt the way you normally speak, because then you're trying to do something you don't normally do. It's going to be more difficult. So whatever way you're most comfortable speaking, that's what you want to do. Sir, add me for a mock exam. I see you there, and Kit, you'll need to turn on your camera if you want to participate. According to marking criteria. No, you don't really need to worry so much about the marking criteria. Like if it's in the speaking test, like you just, if your grammar's good, you get a good grammar score. Vocab's good, you get a good vocab score. Pronunciation, fluency, it's all that. Like it's much more directly related to just generally your ability. In writing, it's different because you have task response and coherence and cohesion scores. So you need to know how to write in a way that you'll get high scores in those areas. But in speaking, like somebody who's never spoken, somebody who knows nothing about the IELTS test but has good fluency, vocab, grammar, and pronunciation, you know, they'll get good scores. I wouldn't recommend walking in off the street. It's good to know the format of the test, like what happens in part 1, part 2, part 3. But you know, like a native English speaker can go into the IELTS test and get a high speaking score, but could potentially get a low writing score if they don't know what to do. So your language ability is much more directly related to your speaking score compared to your writing score. You could have great English, but not a great writing score. Right, you're very welcome. Okay, so it seems that's all we're doing today. Talk to you guys next week. Hope you're all doing well. Best of luck to any of you with tests coming up. And yeah, thank you. Bye.